Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News. I'm your host, Ellie, and we have William here tonight. We're the host and host with the most news. And it's World War III report night and news. And so before I bring William on, I got to let you guys know what our top stories are for today. And as we're looking, oh boy, I'm going to get nervous on this one to make sure it works right. So we have the World War III discussion, NATO, and let me put this at the. All right. I hope you guys can read that. NATO Poland with no Russian strike. Who actually sent that missile? The Arctic zone of conflict. And the banks have made an announcement, and we should worry about it. And also, the Cuban president is meeting up with Putin this week. So these are all top stories that me and William will be discussing tonight. And also, oh, there we go. Isn't that pretty? So let's bring William in. There you go. William, you're on the screen now. Welcome. And I enjoy it. I need to find something really cool for all the women that join the show. So we are now got William in the room, and I'm going to go ahead and get going on this news because quite a bit of it's very interesting. Now, I'm going to start with the Arctic because the Arctic, they say, must not become the zone of conflict, and this is by Canada. Now, Canada is closest to the Arctic, and what they mean is when they looked at the Antarctic, all the countries jumped in, and they all wanted the little wedge of the pie, and it looks like a pie. If you look at Antarctica and all the different countries, it's all like a little pie wedge. Well, see, now they're running after the Arctic, and they're starting to think that there might be a conflict or maybe a war. Me and William talked about this, and he seems to say the same thing. There's a lot, and get this, they didn't do a lot of starting to grab it up until the ice cores came clean, is what it says. And so China released an Arctic policy in 2018 declaring itself near Arctic state, while Russia has ramped up its military presence now. So usually they don't bring in a lot of military. It's always scientific. And now all of a sudden they did it Arctic scientifically. And now up in the Arctic, they're really going about this as a top of the world control. William, what do you think on this? You think that's what, this is how Canada thinks of it. They're up there. It really belongs to them. And now we have all these countries coming over and saying, since it's at the top of the world, that it's China's, it's Russia, anybody like Greenland, it's theirs, not anybody else's. So now they're getting very defensive over it. Well, grabbing a chunk of ice does not seem, I don't know. William, what do you think? Is it just power, control of owning?
In Antarctica, it was divided up again to all the major powers. And it was set up as a scientific reserve. Now, they were trying to make the same argument for the Arctic, saying that all nations should have a piece of it. But the fact is that they found oil and gas in the Arctic. So now everybody wants to claim it. So Alaska has some boundaries right there on the continental shelf. So does Canada, all the way on one side. Then you've got Greenland, Iceland, and then all the way around the other side is Russia, or Finland, then Russia, and Norway. So there's a lot of possibility of drilling for oil and gas, and you don't have to have a permit when you're out in international waters, I don't believe. Perhaps you do, but control of it is now, it's always been a big military thing for the United States and Russia we've always had subs under the ice. So it's just becoming very contentious.
And they're all zooming up there. And, even the scientists have said beware down in the Antarctic. And they said them icebreakers that break through the ice are the problem with some of the ice bergs and ice cores that are melting or falling off and crumbling is because they're breaking it up. And not only that, there's certain parts where it's almost like an avalanche. And they're saying if these scientific ships would run in one path, well, see, then they would have to go all the way around the island. They said and they don't want to do that. So they're having the scientists are not only breaking up the ice around it, but it's causing the ice to melt faster. And because you got fuel, you got stuff you're putting in the water right there. So that's my big thing.
Well,
go ahead.
As soon as the snow doesn't reflect and it just hits water, it warms. The sun warms the water, so it causes the ice to melt a little quicker. So that's what the big energy gain is from. It's not really from the boats themselves. It's from the ice shattering apart and exposing the ocean.
Now, why? So I'm going to kind of move on to the UK, and we found out during the G20. It's not G19. Zelensky called it G19. It's a G20, and the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, he announced they wanted to spend 4.2 or maybe 4.9 billion on 5 new Navy ships to increase its security in the face of the increase of Russian threats. Now, when they talked to not Russia, the United States, what they were saying is they are now trying to defend themselves in the Atlantic since they have so much that is now building up along the Atlantic. Not only do they have Russia, China, but then the United States, and now they feel there's an increased Russian threat, not only in the Atlantic, but all the way up to, they said, Greenland and Iceland. And so they have decided that instead of depending on the U.S. to bring over more ships, they are going to go ahead and spend 4.9 billion on 5 new Navy ships to increase its security. And now, William, it tells me, I think they're buying them from us. I was thinking earlier when me and you were talking about it, because the spending, let's see, where else did it say? They say they're also getting 8 frigates that are expected to be completely in the waters within the next 2 to 5 years. So
yeah, so we're having we've designed a new frigate for our military, and right now Italy is building them for us. They have shipyards and whatnot. Well, the UK has decided that they want to invest in some ships around that size, but more tailored for the North Sea and around the Baltic, and to protect the English Channel. They're not long-range global assets like an aircraft carrier. They're designed to protect the homeland, stay close by, but have enough firepower to be a good defense.
Yeah. So I'm glad they're doing it, because they're not going to depend on us. It seems like, this is something Trump mentioned in his speech last night, is that everybody has to pay their part. And they do. They can't depend on the United States to keep giving them, us to go over and protect them, especially the EU and NATO. NATO's got its, they use everybody. But they have to, the EU and the UK have got to learn to protect themselves in a way, because Russia's right there. And not only that, but if Yemen or even Iran decides to attack them, they have to have a line of defense. They've got to have their own line of defense. Now, with Europe being so far in, it'd be more land and Air Force troops. So, but I'm gonna kind of move on because, boy, this next one, I'm real concerned with this. I've never been worried about having my money in the bank until today, and it was all over. It was, oh my goodness, there was so many. I think Zero Hedge had it, Fox News, everybody had it today. The business journals, and with a warning. And they said a number of global bank giants have partnered with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York for a 12-week digital dollar pilot program. According to a statement from the New York Feds, the trial will explore the feasibility of a network of central banks of wholesale, digital money, and basically a one commercial banking digital money system and operating on shared multi entities. Uh, the program will be testing the feasibility, legal viability, the business that can be used from it, and distributed ledger technologies to um, regulate financial institutes through the transfer of central bank liabilities. Now, who's playing with this? MasterCard, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, HSBC Holdings, PNC Financial Services, TD Bank, Trust Financial, and U.S. Bank Corps. They say are amongst the big banks that have partnered with the New York Feds to start this program. The U.S. dollars may be necessary to support new business models, they said, but for the most part, they should be able to bring new innovations in with settlements and infrastructures, according to Tony McLaughlin, Managing Director for Emerging Payments and Business and Dollars. Citigroup's Treasury and Trade Solutions Division said the projects like this that focus on digitization of one central bank and money, and not only that, but individual bank deposits could be expanded to take a broader view and opportunity. William, boy, I read that and I said, uh-oh. I don't know.
So what they're doing is trying to spread their risk across many platforms, have a greater pool of money for investment, and they want to be able to use your bank accounts to guarantee those big loans they might have, say for like if they want to build a $8 billion semiconductor factory in Texas or something and want to invest in 6 of those. Those are big dollar investments, and no one bank's going to want to take all that on by themselves. Plus, to be able to get manufacturing, be able to invest in manufacturing wherever it is in the world, it almost takes a super mega bank to be able to do it. That's why we haven't had any trust busting of our banks, even though they're way too big now and unwieldy and threaten our market. So they're trying to look at a cross-platform exchange, but they might have a shock in that once they do that, then there's no reason for mega banks, and there may be some trust busting going on and forced to sell off parts of their banks and reduce their size. So it could be good, it could be bad. Usually when big money gets involved, if something goes wrong, it's the little guy ends up holding the bag.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like one world banking system. I didn't see BlackRock in there because BlackRock is the one that was partnered up with.
Happening at the same time. You're right.
Yeah. I think that's what this is. And, the good news, though, William, is it said they wanted to use the dollar to back it. So they got to have the dollar. And right now there's nothing to back the dollar. China's using gold. We used to use gold, and that's what Trump wanted to do. So the dollar is worth a dollar. So I'm not real sure. I'm gonna have to keep an ear out for it, and I'm gonna run this through some business guys, see what they say. Because to me, this sounds like one world banking.
Guaranteed by the United States.
Karen says let them use their own money. Well, Karen, the problem is it's a one world banking system. Like they've been doing the one world thing, changing this and taking all of our fuel and electric and gas and all that away for the one world system. Well, next would be our banking, the churches. The churches would be after this, one world church, and then to take away freedom of speech. So they're working on it slowly. I just, William, I don't see this working. I think the American people are going to say, oh, hell no, you're not taking my money. Or you're not using my money.
When there's an increase in your payments for your house, if you have a balloon payment or whatever, it's based on whatever the interest rates are going on at the Bank of London. And that's because our central bank is actually held by Europe. We actually support all those socialist countries in Europe that are socialist democracies with money that's loaned to us by their banks. And so they take the interest off those loans to Europe.
Yeah.
And that's how Europe survives. If we cut that off, and if that's not guaranteed by the dollar while they're collapsing their systems, then we could be in great shape, and they could destroy their own economies and leave them powerless. So they want both. They want cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Now, like I said, for those that want to read it, Zero Hedge has got a really good article on it. I mean, it's real in depth, but it's very long. Town Hall's another one, Fox News. But they're not talking about it. Why isn't this, William, this is the kind of stuff I tell you all the time. It gets me upset because why didn't they say something? And it's because they're sneaky. They got to this G20 thing and they decided, these, what gets me is it's MasterCard, but not Visa. So how did Nancy Pelosi get left out of this? There's something there with MasterCard. And to me, hold on a second. To me, it sounded like they were going to do something with our credit cards, maybe the interest rate up. And then I started seeing these other banks. And then I said, wait a minute, BlackRock's not in there. BlackRock is the one in control of the banking system in basically Italy and New York. So it sounds like between what's going on over Europe and then what's going on in New York, they've combined together. And now they just need to get all these big banking into it. And I think that's why they haven't fell at the stock market. So go ahead, William.
Well, they're trying to, it's a banking cartel, like OPEC is an oil cartel. They're creating a banking cartel to be able to compete with the biggest banks like, U.S. Bank, Bank of America, whatnot. So these smaller banks are trying to band together, but they don't have enough weight to maintain their risks, so they want it guaranteed by the U.S. dollar. So it's typical.
The one, and this don't have nothing to do with the money or the banking, but I heard on our news this morning, and it was odd because they said that the hospital, since all these clinics and things have been shutting down in some of the hospitals, they want to do a one medical system. I thought, oh, good grief. What, which would take our doctors away and that everything would be treated at the hospital. To me, that kind of reminds me of how Canada is. But really, a one medical system, as you go in and you go through the front door and there's no way out. That's still.
Well, that it's like Obamacare. This is just Obamacare 2.0.
Yeah. They called me up one day and I told them that they were like, oh, well, we need to expand your medical services. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And they were talking about my Medicare and Medi-Cal and Medicare. Yeah. And I said, well, who is this with? And they said, well, it's part of the Obama medical care system. Uh, I said, well, Obama sucks, and I don't want his medical care.
Well,
They hung up really quick.
because
So I think it was spam. I think they were trying to spam me, but I said, Obama sucks. I don't want his medical care. I
so
seen what it did to me.
they called me up and they they said that I may have more things available to me, but what they also were saying is we may restrict what services you can get, and we'll just bill it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a Ponzi scheme to take away medical care from the poor.
Yeah, it's called what, United Medical Services or something like that, something along that line. Don't fall for it, folks. They say, oh, we'll give you part C and D, and guess what? You'll get dental and you'll get all these, was it dental and eye and all kinds of stuff. No, 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 no. There is a credit card called Credit Care, and the interest on it's really low. You have to have decent credit, but you can get that, and you can have not only dental but eyes, and not only that, but it covers vets. It covers for your animals on this Credit Care card.
You can pay for additional medical services, like I pay an extra $100, then I can get Part C and the other things, so that I don't have to pay a lot extra for prescriptions. But that's something you pay above Medicare. You pay into Medicaid for that. Then, if you get sick or whatnot, they can't restrict you from seeing a doctor in some location or wherever you can be seen anywhere in the United States, and they can't tell you that you can't get services for some sort of a pre-existing condition, but you need to do it that way and not where they say, well, we'll give you all this expanded stuff if you'll just sign up with us for free. That's not the case at all.
No, because get this. This is what they tell you. This is Karen says she's had these calls too. What they do is they get y'all signed up for it, and then they say, you know what? You're going to have to cover a penalty with your Medicare, and it's a couple $100. It's like your whole check, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. That's used for my bills, or medicines or your rent, mortgage. And they say, oh, well, that's part of it. And I'm like, because I went all the way through the end with them to see what the scam was all about. And then I told them about Credit Care, and they were like, oh, well, you might not want to do that because interest rates. And I go, yeah, but look at what you're doing. And of course, they hang up on me. I'm getting pretty good because now my phone, I'm answering investigator news. And so when they hear that, they hang up thinking they got a hold of a news show or a business. So I gave in the chat room, if you guys seen, it looks like just a garbly goop to a link. That is the link to that article I just read. And if not, then go to Zero Hedge. It's right there on their first page or two. So, all right, William, go ahead.
Whenever they say that they may be able to expand your services, they're also saying what they're not saying is they can also restrict your services. That's what the may is all about. That's the hook in the whole thing. That's what they have to declare, is just that word may.
Yeah.
And then they can use your services, restrict your services, and bill for things that you don't actually get an opportunity to use.
Yeah. Now, the other thing they try to do is They try to tell you there's something wrong with your account. That's the other scam. Anytime you get any of these kind of calls, folks, you know what you do? You tell them, let me call Social Security and let me check this out with them and see what they suggest. And they will hang up on you quicker than snot. Uh, yeah, they will hang up on you. So do that. Anytime you get these calls, tell them you're going to check with Social Security first. Please, folks, don't fall for this. There's so many scammers out there.
They'll also bait you with saying that they'll give you $900 a year for groceries, but what they don't tell you, you'll lose all your services in the process.
Yep. Or you got to do a stupid survey, and then they want you to buy something at the end. It's like, and then you call them up and you say, "What the hell?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you got to do that to get the card." Or sometimes it's just the card, but it's only the one-time thing. And I asked them, "Well, if I go all the way and I change my mind, do I still get the card?" And they said, "Yeah." Now I've been calling them back, asking where my card is, and they hang up on me.
Well, if they're calling you up on your phone, chances are it's a bait and switch operation. Just don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just go through Social Security and the proper way of getting your additional policies. I mean, you have to pay for it a little bit, but a lot of times it's worth it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like me and you have some special issues.
They also do the Microsoft thing that something's wrong with your computer. I love messing with those guys. I take them on a road trip. I play sound effects and everything to go get that little card they want real bad. I tie them up for a couple hours, and then they call me back for 2 days saying they're going to do things really horrible to me and my mama. So, all right, William, we're gonna move along because we have this thing with NATO. And I told you about NATO and Poland. Now, Poland and Kyiv are pretty close, folks, and we know that there are Russians over there, and we know there's some intense fighting. It's just they won't go into Poland. They're not going to go into the EU or Europe at all. And what had happened was there was a missile that had struck. Now, mind you, the last few days, Putin has been shooting missiles. Not only there, but inside the line of those countries that he wants and protect. Now, in the midst, Poland got hit. Now, I talked to William about it, and I said, when they were down in Mariupol, Ukraine did the same thing, kind of. They fired a missile and blamed it on Russia. And then come to find out they were the ones that did it. They also did it on the nuclear plant. Same thing. So did they do it? Well, we have NATO. We have Poland, the United States have all said that no, it came from Ukraine. Go ahead, William.
So it could have been fired by Russia, but Ukraine also captures a lot of Russian equipment. So if it's fired from 20 miles into the Russian side or 20 miles into the Ukrainian side, you're not going to really know where it originated in that 40-mile zone, especially when it's traveling clear across the country, the width of the country, and then landing 50 miles into Poland. So there's no real way to absolutely blame Russia. But Russia could have fired it, and it could have just been one of its commanders or just one of the systems of the avionics on the cruise missile just misguided it. Nobody's ever going to really know what happened that way. And people who say that just because it's a Russian cruise missile, it's Russian, that's not necessarily true, because we've captured tanks, a lot of equipment that's worth a lot less than a cruise missile, and they're going to be in depots the same way.
Yeah. Now, 3 days ago, before all of this, Biden and Trudeau going over to China, there was a statement that was made by the Chinese Communist Party, the directive to China's military. I'm trying to see who said it. I believe Jinping said it. And he said, the head of the Chinese Communist Party is sending out a directive to China's military to devote all its energy to preparing a fight in wars. He made the comment during a visit to the Chinese military highest wartime command center, right? It's real close to about 3 to 4 days ago. The CCP leader and Jinping also added that China faces increased instability and uncertainty in its security. He said that specifically in basically a certain region, and we all know it by name. And it's believed he was referring to Taiwan. Um, Now, the other thing he was complaining about, he made this big statement, but it was to be not only this to be kept in kind of private, hush hush, but he made other statements to Trudeau and Biden. And now he cornered, supposedly he was caught cornering Trudeau and had given him I want to say, good talking to. And he said, you know, everything we discussed has been leaked, and that's not appropriate. And that's not the way the conversation was conducted. You lied. And you and the United States, Biden, Mr. Biden, uh, you're supposed to have sincerity on your part. And they said, you believe that in your Canada you can have free and open, frank dialogue, but that's not what was being told between uh, leaders. When we talk in private, it shouldn't be going to the paper. So, and he told them, you know, I've put the red line in the sand, and it seems to be getting closer. Now, William, he said wars. He didn't say Taiwan. He just said wars. So to me, that kind of doesn't say he's all directed on Taiwan. But then we had Taiwan say a few days ago that China is ramping up and they think war is fixing to happen. So, but he said wars. That was my whole thing. He made a big point. And Jinping don't just say. He means, he puts the words behind it.
So Jinping is saying three different things here. One is that we don't have an open press in China, and you shouldn't have an open press in the United States, in France, and in Canada. And so when we talk, it's going to be on CCP terms, not Western terms.
Yeah.
Of the free press. So that's big. He's pushing for power there. Then he's talking about preparing for wars. So he's getting his military all spun up so that they're ready to go into any conflict that they decide to go into. It doesn't necessarily mean Taiwan. It could be the South China Sea. It could just be against the United States. It could be in the Arctic. It could be anywhere they decide. So that's the other thing that's going on. So they're upset about Taiwan. So they're going to wind up their entire military, and the rest of the world's not supposed to notice or see that there's any problem with that. So that's something that's errant. And the other thing is he wants privacy and demands privacy to do negotiations, and he has no power to do that in a world where we engage in free trade. And he wants to have a contingent on communist ideology, and that's just silly. He's just trying to express himself as being the big world leader, and everybody else needs to get in line.
Yep.
And the foreign diplomats need them the other side of their face.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I think Taiwan does. I think Taiwan has got this all figured out, and they're just building up as they go. Because I mean, the reporters I have over there in Taiwan said they're always flying low, and they said like if you go over to Japan, then you have North Korea doing the same thing, and they said that you get from the people that they take it as a bully tactic, that it's not really their big concern about this big war breaking out as much as they're saying he's a bully right now. And see, to me, that's kind of calming. But when he is looking at Trudeau and Biden and saying, you know what, I'm drawing the line in the sand, and he didn't like how they gave out secrets. So there was stuff, I think, more than just the little bit of chatter that Trudeau did. I think he said something, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to see what he was saying.
Well, I think the red line he's talking about is Western warships transiting the Taiwan Strait. That really is an affront to them, because they want to be able to take that unilaterally and not have anybody else get involved. And if there's a Western ship in that area when they make their invasion, then that automatically might involve a quad warship, could even involve a NATO warship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, we're going to have to just kind of watch. I mean, everybody, all the nuclear threat is finally calmed down. No one's talking about, nobody's going to use it. And I think we're back to hypersonics again, because that's what we're seeing. And not only that, but Putin is putting hypersonics on Cuba. Now, he's been loading Cuba up and with planes, and he has moved ships that direction. Now he is bringing in Miguel Diaz-Canel, is set to meet with Putin this week. Now, who he is? He is the president of Cuba. And so this is kind of important, because what he wants to do is start bringing in troops, and he wants to start training Cubans and make them part of a Russian army in a way, and paying them. Now, William, you and me know Cubans don't have money. And to hear something like this, I think it just might capture their, a little bit. I don't know if they know what they're getting into, but they say contact between the two heads have been going on for at least the last 2 years. And not only that, but there was established connections with the leader Fidel Castro at one point. So go ahead.
So Cuba and Russia has had a long-standing relationship with each other since our embargo of Cuba. And Russia has provided military arms, they've provided medical equipment, they've provided warships occasionally, they've provided training, and they've also provided a lot of oil and things like that, paid for it for Cuba, because they're a communist country just 90 miles south of Florida.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's Venezuela too. They're meeting, they seem to be meeting with Venezuelan leader.
It's new for Venezuela, but it's very old, long-standing relationship with
Russia.
Cuba. Now,
well, they did say that, because he said
cruise missiles there, as long as they're not nuclear, because once they put nuclear weapons there, then the treaty we have basically with Russia that happened right during the Cuban Missile Crisis would be overturned, and the United States would then be willing to attack Cuba.
Yeah. Now I heard they got launchers in Cuba, but I don't know what type of missiles, or if it's the hypersonics, or if it's something else. Cruise missiles, we don't know.
If they're just conventional and they're hypersonic, we're indifferent to that. Although they could hurt something in the
So, and did not, like I said, not only that, but then Venezuela. And during the visit, they say they're going to unveil in Moscow the Cuba's late revolutionary leader. They're doing the statue, I believe, and to celebrate him, Fidel Castro. Uh, but Putin himself said Cuba is an important partner, and there's lots to talk about. And not only that, but Peskov said that this way they could start building up in Cuba, and they again mentioned the ships in the Atlantic, and even submarines. So that's kind of, it goes along with what the UK was saying, what we were talking earlier, where the UK saying, you know what, we've got these ships, Russia threatening us in ways, and we need to build up our naval. And I think that this is what they're talking about, William, because it's all
Yeah.
within the last few days of they're talking boats, they're talking Cuba. Cuba's talking about training with Russia now. So
Sure, it's anti-submarine warfare. It's protecting your coastlines. It's basically what we do with our heaviest coast guard. Not every country has a coast guard like us. They just have a military. And what is going on in Australia and in the UK is they're building up what they consider a brown water fleet, not a deep blue water fleet, but a brown water fleet that can get in close access areas around the perimeters of their countries and protect the countries with, anti-missile systems, with anti-ship warfare systems, with anti-sub systems. So it's basically air, sea, and underwater protection of their coastlines. And as tensions build up here in Ukraine and with Russia, that has a blue water fleet, and China that now has a blue water fleet, everybody's going to be wanting to protect their coastlines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then this one here I thought would have been out because Israel was hauling. They had a big freighter that was hauling diesel, and I think it was to be shared, and it was hit by an Iranian drone off the coast of Oman, I believe. And so now there's this little tiff going on because this is one of the top richest men that does diesel in Israel. And so now they're blowing the ship up. And they said that they're going to keep doing this. Anything that tries to go past Yemen or Oman, anybody that tries to come around that peace is going to be attacked. But, William, this is normal because, when our Navy was over there, the Carl Vinson and their little ships, that was real close to that one little Gulf part, they were firing upon naval ships. They don't, Iran don't care and Yemen don't care. They'll just fire upon anything that's got money, type of money. And I bet you they got this diesel. They did it with a drone. And I bet you between Iran and Yemen, because Iran is now giving Yemen missiles to fire. So now I believe that's what we're seeing. They're going to start grabbing oil or diesel that comes around that part of the country. And
well, we dealt with piracy in the Gulf of Oman.
That's right.
Sudan. We don't know that that Iran was involved in that. We don't know that Yemen wasn't involved with that because people transited from Sudan over to I forget the name of the country. I just said it.
Oman, Yemen.
Yeah, Yemen.
Yeah, Yemen. They're the ones that are not only that, but Somalian pirates. You got to worry about coming around that coast of Africa too, because they'll go after it.
It's it's all one thing, really. And we just dealt with piracy as piracy, but now we've got Yemen and Iran using drones as well, so they've escalated one notch.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys knew, but coming out, some of the stuff coming out with the January 6th, and I mentioned Proud Boys before, and this is just new stuff. They're finding out that there was 5, maybe 9 FBI's that infiltrated Proud Boys, became one, and they are the ones that ended up getting in trouble on January 6th. And this is what's coming out. So this is a new thing that they're trying to hide. But William, we were talking as close as war that we are, and everybody's so worried. We got some of the best, the strongest Air Force, and between the Air Force being so strong, then recently we have had the Army looking at new small arms, and not only that, but even larger, going to tanks and artillery. Better equipment, new equipment, and they're starting to. They've look almost, William. To me, it looks like they started big and they went all the way to the small. Not that the Army is small, but small arms that now that they're purchasing. So we're getting ahead of the game. And not only do we have they finished with the Air Force. We got a heck of a strong Air Force, and that's what you said. And I said, you know what? We got a hell of a strong Navy too. And now they're building up our Army. You got to have your ground forces. Now, I think you said something about we have the best, and they're not going to just use them for frivolous fights because they don't want to lose these powerful machines. I think that's what you were saying, William.
So the Army learned a bunch of lessons in Afghanistan as far as sniper weapons and squad automatic weapons, and the M14, some of the downsides of it, or I'm sorry, the M4. So maybe it's 14. I'm sorry, M14. So they've come up with a number of fixes, like for the M14 and the squad automatic weapon. It's going to be ambidextrous, so it can be cocked from either side. So a left-handed troop and right-handed troop can use it. They're also going to.
I heard the big one was the William. Not to interrupt you, because this is something that happened in Iraq. Is the bulletproof vest or the armor? They said it was depleted when Trump got in office. So they had to start building it back up. Well, it slowed down to where the military was still shorthanded, and somehow Trump, put the funding in for it. And I mean, they're just going by the thousands. They're shipping them out to the Army. So go ahead.
Like the M16 fired the 223, which is a great round where you're in close contact, like in Vietnam. But when we got to Afghanistan, where they were having to fire at long range, they weren't as effective. So they want to go from the 223 to the 6.7 millimeter, which is like a 270 round. Or anyway, it's a lot bigger round. It travels farther, but it's heavier. And the squad automatic weapon, they want to make it so that more than just one individual in a squad can carry a heavy automatic weapon. So that's something that's going on. And then when they go to sniper weapons, they've been using the 50 caliber, but the 50 caliber was really designed to take out equipment. It wasn't really designed to take out personnel. So they want to go to something that's more approximate to 30-06 is the best way to explain it in a way that people would understand, not 7.62 by 300. It's more like a heavy 30-06 round. And that's a better sniper weapon. It has good range, it has good knockdown power, and it doesn't hurt firing the weapon as much, because that 50 caliber was a very abusive weapon. And when they use the 7.62 by 300, they can put a suppressor on it and also a bit of a brake on it, so it's not having all that terrible recoil, and that allows them to get off multiple rounds quicker in the aiming process, because that weapon's not jumping as much. So that's what's going on with that. Now, as far as air war, what I said to you is nations don't want to come up against the United States Air Force in an air war, because we fly air combat controls that go for air dominance. So they would be sending up $180 million or $60 million aircraft just to be shot down, swatted out of the air like flies. Most countries can't afford to lose those big ticket items in mass. And so what they do is they just don't go up against them. They don't fire at our aircraft while we maintain air dominance in the area that our military is active in, our Army or our Navy is active in. And then they wait till a better time when our Air Force isn't in that area, isn't there in strength, because it's just too costly. It's like going out and throwing away frigates by the dozens for no reason. It's very, very expensive.
Yeah. Now, the other thing was, and this is something that Dutchson's brought up. Now, folks, HARP. Now, something they said was a big tinfoil conspiracy theory. Well, now that everybody's got them, they say, yeah, it's a type of equipment with I've done HARP with you guys before. And see, what Dutchson's caught was an earthquake that was, and it did he said he talked about just like what William talked about. So I'm not thinking it's HARP. It might be one of these missiles that sparked and right next to, and it would have caused it to, and right next to a nuclear plant. And to me, not only do we see in nuclear plants, but we're seeing a lot of volcanoes. We're seeing over here in a weird spot in China, and then we see a weird spot over in the United States. And it's always close to a volcano or a nuclear plant. And this is something that Dutchson's has pulled out, is they're starting to have small tremors right next to these nuclear plants. And I mentioned HARP. Now, William, you mentioned a missile that does the same thing, that it somehow, go ahead.
We do hybrid warfare, so we use commodities as warfare. We use radio signals as warfare, like Voice of America.
Cyber.
We use the
cyber.
Electromagnetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. The internet, we use the electromagnetic spectrum. All major powers have electromagnetic spectrum warfare. And
that's kind of like HARP.
Weak bases and set up standing waves that cause things that are already under tension to be released. And they can also use, you can put up an electromagnetic weapon like on a cruise missile and have the power blanked out in a country. Well, you can do it underwater as well. You can touch off an electromagnetic weapon there if it will release something.
Yeah.
So they're going to do covert things long before they do overt things.
Yeah.
And so if we're seeing stuff that continues to be around volcanoes.
Yeah. Infrastructure. They do infrastructure more, like knock the power out or knock the phone out. Yeah.
Tectonic plates where they can get cities rocked to the ground, or
next to a nuclear plant, next to, or hit the power grid, hit a fossil fuels plant. Who knows? Uh,
Everything's up for grabs now.
yeah, and
Anything
see,
they could that they used to do with what did they used to call it? It was warfare between the corporations.
mhm.
It was like enterprise warfare. Well, now governments are getting in on it too, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you'll see things like food plants all of a sudden catching fire, and you can't
Yeah,
get your
remember,
potato
Mary? There was
chips in.
20 of them. There was over 20 of the food plants that all caught on fire, and then
Yeah,
power grid started, and then it all calmed down, and then we started seeing the flooding for no reason, and
or
or
forest
how
fires.
about or a forest fire? They could do that too with HARP. Not and you know what got me was earthquakes, severe earthquakes, big ones, with no tsunamis. Now, and even USGS guy said something's wrong here. Maybe this wasn't. And a few times I've even read, um, my viewers know that I said, oh, wait a minute, might be an explosion, but there's nothing there. So I think, and I really do think you guys watch Dutch Sits because he has something. He caught on to something here, and that's what it is he was talking about. Was this um, nuclear plant? And and when I looked at it, I said, "That's HARP. That's HARP." And then William told me about this other thing, electromagnetic and missiles that could do the same thing. So are we, they have we done the cyber war? They hacked us. They hit up our power grid. Remember when the East Coast went out? And then flooding, lots of flooding over in China. And then all of a sudden we're in this war with Russia. And then all of a sudden we're seeing Australia flood. And who's going after China? None other than Australia. So start looking at this stuff, guys, because if we're not going to have boots on the ground or the planes in the air, or we're going to be fighting conventionally, this could be their type of war they're doing back and forth. We don't know. We don't know unless they tell us. And it's so easy for some of the mainstream media just to go ask some questions about this, but they won't. They're paid for. They're told what to say. Operation Mockingbird. And if you haven't heard of Operation Mockingbird, folks, go find it on YouTube, and you'll understand that it's just all repeated, repeated, repeated. So,
So no military is going to divulge something they don't have to. They only divulge
that's right.
what they're forced to.
That's right.
And so don't expect the Main Street News to tell you about how
No.
we get involved in other types of derivative warfare.
Yeah, they'll do cyber.
Within,
They do cyber, but they're not going to go.
Even off,
They're
even
going to
in
do
space, we're involved in things.
right. Yeah, and I mean, even look at the fight that we talked about up in the Arctic. All these little itty bitty wars. Oh, here comes the puppy dog. Now the other thing, one last thing, and we'll try to make this short. The genocide, folks. We heard coming out of Ukraine, all of these people that were, Russia, the atrocities. And we've talked about this before. It happens on both sides, folks. It just don't matter. It happens. So yeah, Russia maybe did that, but at the same time, we're hearing, when Russia goes in and they move the Russians out, what do they hear? Oh, the atrocities, the genocide. They did this. They did that. Um, and this is part of war, folks. They hold them. They take them hostage. They take them and put them in prisons. They kill both sides. It's not just Russia and Ukraine. China does it. All these countries are going to do this. Um, it, you know, now the genocide with the Uyghurs. Now that's different. This is war, and you're always going to hear genocide thrown out there when. And they said, "Oh, we found mass graves." No, those are the old mass graves they already had on the news many moons ago. So, but I'm going to let William go with it. Go ahead, William.
The United States has superb command and control of its troops, and so even though it didn't sign the Geneva Convention, it's always upheld those types of rules with prisoners and whatnot. And so does France for the most part, and so does England or the UK. So our press expects that other countries are going to
abide by it
the same way. And they don't have the same command and control with their troops. They don't have the control right down to the JAG officer level. And things get out of hand. You know, once troops are in country about 4 months, they start getting almost a bloodlust. Some of them actually get bloodlust. And things get out of hand really quick until commanders can get hold of these prisoners.
Yeah, and I even told you, you know, with the Geneva Convention, that was the smartest thing that was ever put in place. But what happens between, like I said earlier, from the time they capture them to where they get them to a place that where the Geneva Convention is, you know, you have to do it. They torture them. I mean, that's just so well known. I mean, even Vietnam, they accused us of atrocities.
Well, and the Vietnamese would take our pilots and parade them downtown.
Yeah.
They'd nearly lose their lives.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes
also
the Army would have to actually protect them.
Yeah. Look at Black Hawk Down with Somalia.
Protect our pilots.
Yeah. And I mean, Vietnam, they accused us of some horrible things. But did we do them or did we not? There's rogue soldiers all the time. And then, you know, we're looking at Black Hawk Down, the Somalis that did that to those pilots. So, and they're supposed to be we're all bound to Geneva Convention, but what they can get away with before they get caught, that's what they do. I mean, and not only that, but we're seeing a lot of slit throats in some of these skirmishes. I believe it was over in Yemen with Saudi. They were catching Saudis and just slitting their throats, and with some of the stuff they were doing. And they were reminded of the Geneva Convention and what they can and can't do. And the UN stepped in and they, oh no, nothing to see here. We didn't do that. And I think that happens a lot. And I believe, yeah, you got to remember Ukrainians, they hate Russians. Russians hate the Ukrainians. And it's going to happen no matter what. I mean, you got mercenaries that's going to go after other mercenaries that know who they killed. And it could have been their mom. And they're going to grab them up and they're going to do some mean things to them. And then, of course, they look at the atrocities. So, all right, William, anything left that you want to? I know you always have something to add. So if you have anything over with all the way through tonight, we went over a lot of stuff, a lot of important stuff. The banking concerns me, folks. So.
Well, the big threat I see out there that could really impact all of our lives, and we don't have a lot of control over, is what China wants to do into Taiwan and what we'd be forced to do.
Yeah.
The banking thing, that could be stopped by Congress. It's a trial balloon. It's
trial, yeah.
It's scream loud enough, it won't happen. So I'm not as nervous about that, although they're going to try to do it in the dark of night at the last minute in the last Congress that's fully controlled by the Democrats. We expect some stuff to happen before January 6th again.
Yeah.
So there's that. And, but, you know, for the most part, our world's a pretty safe place here in the United States. I know we have problems with law and order, but the vast majority of us are safe. We're secure in our homes and our possessions. And we need to look at this as big power trying to express itself. And it's always been here. You just haven't heard about it. And this is something you need to kind of, in your mind, get used to and not get terribly nervous about, because it's always been there. It just has been put out on your plate.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but we got, why do you think everybody flocks here or run to us for protection? Is because we got some of we got the strongest country. I agree with Trump. We got the best. We got the strongest. We got the most proud country ever in the world. And I think that's why we're the biggest and the baddest. And like you said, people need to just simmer down a little bit and realize that we are the best country on the globe. And it's going to take a while for even the strongest militaries to try to even start to penetrate our forces. So, William, do you got a song that you're going to send me for them this week?
Well, there's a song by this gal, trying to think of her name suddenly, Violet Orlandi. She's a Brazilian gal, and she does collaborations with, even Ukrainian musicians. And she has one called Take Me to Church, and it's it's a blues song from the South, and it's about a gal or a guy wanting their significant other to take them to church, and it doesn't matter. They don't care about what they have to do. They just want to be with that other person, and it's all about please let me have a relationship with you, and I'll even go to church with you if I have to. So it's kind of a fun thing, but it's also a blues song, and it's fun to listen to.
I'm probably going to throw a turkey song out there. They're pretty good. I love these short videos with turkey stuff on.
Once Christmas comes out, I have a song for that.
Yeah, we'll get to the Christmas and all that, so we'll have a big assortment.
Yeah.
And so, what she's doing? The dog is like, I don't know. She's fitting in here. She's just turning circles and biting her tail. So I don't know.
So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I hope everybody's well and at home.
Yes.
And, having a good time with their relationships in their life and making the best out of those things, because that's what we can really control.
Yes. I do have for you to, we're going to do William's music. I'll throw a turkey thing on there. I got this week's fun post video together. That'll be put out there. And then, of course, tomorrow, we'll be back. And William will be back next Wednesday. It'll be the day before Thanksgiving. There probably won't be a show on Thanksgiving. I have to cook. They all depend on me to cook, William. They never give me a break. Every year, it's like, you're cooking, right? And I'm like, well, can somebody else do this? Now, I let my daughter do it one year, and she put the turkey in the oven. She stuffed it and everything, and then we were cutting it apart, and she never pulled anything out of it. And she burnt the turkey. Oh boy. So yeah, we have a lot of fun. All right, folks. And of course, thank William. I enjoy having him here on Wednesday nights for the World War III report. And I think it's Linda. Linda says, she really likes to hear William because he explains a lot of stuff that she really don't understand about war. And that's why he's here. So, all right. So tomorrow at this time, we'll have our caller, which is Susan, for the show. So, maybe some turkey trivia for Friday. Okay, William, I think it's all said and done. And I want to thank everyone for coming and watching the show. And subscribe and hit the like button, hit the bell make sure you come back or notified when we do a show. We appreciate your support, and always thanks for watching. Over in Facebook, be sure to hit the follow and the like. So with that, everyone, God bless. Like William says, fill the churches. Uh, make a Turkey Day a God's Day this year, and be thankful. Be thankful for all of us being together as one family. Even though it's going to be hard to afford it, make the best of it, folks. Maybe make a smaller dinner, but it's the fact that we're thankful that we're all together. So with that, we will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, and God bless.